everyone. Welcome to Fourth and Goal, episode. What are we on now?
We're at five.
Episode 5.
Hard to believe.
Oh my gosh. With your hosts, Joey Lafco.
I'm Robert Westerman.
We have a lot to talk about today, but just to address our new setup, we got this dual camera action. Rob, what do we think about this?
It's cool. It's kind of weird because usually I'm like looking right there at the one, but now I'm looking here at the two camera angles. I think it's good. And we've also we've got some graphics changes too coming, but the cameras is like the first upgrade, if you will. So it's exciting.
Yeah, it's going to be definitely increasing the quality of our work, the production, and we're excited to get into it. We want to jump into our first topic today real quick, and let's just address the new rules, the rule change in the NFL, the hip drop tackle being eliminated. What is our first initial thoughts there?
Well, so I was at first a little confused what the hip drop tackle exactly was, and so
I feel like a lot of people too.
Right. So basically, it's like hard to describe, but you know it when you see it. But essentially, it's like when somebody's going in for a tackle and they use their hips to drag somebody down. So it's like giving them extra weight.
Extra force.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Exactly. And the fact that I think a lot of people, like I remember when it first came out, there's a lot of mixed reaction because it was like, okay, this is good for player safety, and obviously this tackle is really not that necessary. Obviously, like with something like a horse collar or a face mask, like obviously like those are penalized for a reason. So I think the hip drop is just another one. But the thing about this one, I think, is that sometimes when you get into the nitty gritty of those tackles, it's hard for the players to not do them because
they're subconscious moves.
Right, exactly. They're just trying to they're just trying to tackle.
Yeah.
Right? Like they're not trying to hurt them. I mean, anytime it happens, I would almost guarantee it's completely unintentional, right? No, I mean, they're not trying to hurt each other.
Yeah, exactly.
Injuries happen.
It's a part of the game. Right. It's a physical game, and that's what a lot of people forget.
Extremely physical game.
Yeah.
But I do think with the amount of concussions, and the rule that we'll talk about in a second has more so to do with the concussions. But I think with the amount of concussions and the consequences that we're seeing with those, I understand why the NFL is headed in this sort of direction with penalizing tackles that will lead to injury most likely. So I kind of understand where they're coming from, and the players and the analysts that are like, the leg is getting too soft. I think one tackle change is not going to be a big deal. And you don't see this tackle that often anyway. I mean, the example clips that the NFL had in their rule change in their report, I mean, I don't even remember those plays. I mean, so.
But I feel like that's the dangerous part about it because not being able to even distinguish like the hip drop tackle for us, how are the refs are going to be able to distinguish this in game, in real time, right in front of their eyes? I don't know. I mean, I feel like that's going to be a harder thing to officiate and like to regulate in the game because the hip drop tackle, I mean, it's a common tackle that a lot of defensive players use. It's a play that it's a style that they've been using since they've started. So you're going to have players now trying to think before they tackle, like they already do, I guess, to an extent for helmet to helmet, etc. But you have to really put that extra thought before you go in for that tackle. You can't really go for that drop anymore, right. And that's like I feel like that's a common style of play. I feel like I see that a lot sometimes, especially with running backs that are just on the loose and there's no other way to stop it. Exactly.
I mean, they've got so much momentum going.
100%.
I mean, it's hard to tackle. So any way that a linebacker or a cornerback can tackle that running back, I mean, they're going to do it.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, the one clip that I remember was like an in route, and I just remember, I can't remember what position it was, but I mean,
probably like a receiver going like in right here, and then the guy just dropping him down.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I don't remember what defensive player it was.
Yeah.
Regardless, the second rule change that I think is going to have a bit more impact, in my opinion, is the kickoff change. So, as I said earlier, with the concussions, I think we see a lot of unnecessary injuries on kickoffs.
Right.
And so this rule change, so there's actually quite a bit of difference. So first of all, the reason for this change is that the NFL saw its lowest kickoff return rate last year, in addition to the numerous amount of injuries that occur on kickoff. So the biggest difference is with the alignment. So it's kind of a weird setup now. So the kicking team players start on the receiving team's 40, but they can't move until someone from the other team has it in their hands or it like hits the ground, whatnot. And then
It's honestly pretty I feel like that's better. Like it would be more
I think it is better because the thing about the kickoff is that it's a pretty exciting play, right?
Mhm.
You have just like 11 guys kind of like going at it, and the kickoff return is pretty exciting. So I think it's good because not only will it help prevent injuries, but it'll also encourage more kickoff returns, which is
and
I
probably
think,
more return yardage because
Right.
yeah, exactly. They'll
right.
have more
So
time.
right, and then any kick that lands anywhere from the receiving team's 20 to the end zone must be returned. So there's no remember how from the 20 to the end zone you could fair catch it
Yeah.
and you get it at the 30.
Yeah.
Or is
The
it
25.
25?
Yeah.
Right. 25. You have to return it now, which I think is good. I think it's good because most of the time the ball ends up going for a touchback anyway.
Right.
But I think with the fair catch, it was basically almost a guarantee.
Yeah.
Right. Why would you not just take the ball at the 25 and
Exactly.
not have to get hurt, not have to even run?
That's what a lot of people do anyway, already, and
Right.
they just call the fair catch. And so I think that will bring more entertainment to the game, especially like at those high tension moments with the kickoff. And this rule was really influenced by the XFL and their way of doing kickoffs too. They've already implemented this strategy a while ago. So, and honestly, it's I feel like it's just a better strategy and a better way to play the game, especially at that point of the game, because it used to be an exciting factor. Now I feel like recently, especially with the way that kickoffs have been lately, it's just not as exciting. Like you'll get a receiver catching it at the 25 and then returning it for maybe 3 yards, 4 yards. And so it's just like you see another kickoff and you're like, all right, whatever. But now I feel like this will definitely change the game and bring a lot more attention to the kickoff because a lot of people don't even pay attention in the first place during that time. I think it'll bring more attention.
Yeah, I agree. I don't know what degree difference it's going to make, but it certainly is going to.
It'll be a better play. Like it'll just be a better play to watch for everybody, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely. So those are really the two main rule changes, and
I like them.
I agree. But what about like future rule changes? Like, are we going to keep seeing this sort of pattern where the NFL is going to keep implementing these penalties to these, injury? How do you describe it? These tackles that are going to lead to more injuries,
like injury-prone tackles, basically.
Right,
yeah,
exactly.
I'm not sure. I think so, but a lot of people think that these rule changes to begin with happen because of just the scoring of teams. I think the report last year was that the NFL was concerned of how much defense was getting better. I guess just locking up the game. Like there was just less entertaining games, like lower scoring games just on average. Like I think the number was like 27 points per game to like 23. And that was like that was a report that the NFL was just the NFL league office was just concerned about that number. So I think maybe this is a lot of people think that this could be a way to address that, like with these new tackles, like kind of making it a little easier for offense to make some plays, like a little harder for the defense to like just be able to get those stops. But I don't know. I think the injury-prone tackles, that's just always going to be a part of the game. I don't know if you can limit it that much more at this point. We have a lot of injury-prone limiting tackles, so that are gone. So
yeah, I think you make a good point. I personally think that the NFL is definitely going to keep looking to implement these rules as much as they can.
Right.
Just because they've come under a lot of scrutiny, especially in recent years. We've seen a lot of very devastating tackles. And obviously, it's football. right?
Yeah.
At the end of the day, it's football, and these things are going to happen. That you accept the risk as a player. So I don't think
And they get paid the money to do it.
Oh, right.
They get paid the
get
money to
they
to
get
do that.
they get paid.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, I think I wouldn't be surprised if we see more of these rule changes.
Right. I mean, surprising, maybe not. Good for the game. I don't think so. Eliminating these tackles also eliminates the entertainment of the game too. And obviously, player safety is of top priority. But like we just said, you know the risks when you go in the NFL, and I think that's also just part of the game. I think that's a part of what people want to see, like just the risk factor involved in that too, just the high tension of the game. It's a physical, violent game, and it's always been like that. And I think that the NFL has already basically eliminated all the really dangerous tackles. Like with this hip drop tackle, I guess this is one of the last extremely dangerous tackles that they've eliminated. I mean, you see what they did. I mean, the biggest tackle that they eliminated was the head to head. I feel like that was just a necessity. But this one, I guess I could see where they're coming from, but I don't know how much more you could change of the game of tackling at this point.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think the NFL is going to try and change. They're going to try and change as little as possible because you have to keep in mind that at the end of the day, the NFL is a sports league, but it's a business.
Right.
Right. So, however they can keep their money flow going, they're going to do it. But I mean, then again, like, is changing one rule or a couple of rules really going to make a big difference? No, I don't think so. But anyway, moving on. We've been talking a lot about this upcoming draft, and you can argue which position group is the best. In my opinion, I mean, you got a good quarterback class,
Good wide
lots
receiver
of
class.
very good wide receiver class, especially from LSU and obviously Marvin Harrison Jr., Rome Odunze. Lots of good. There's a bunch of good cornerbacks and offensive linemen as well.
Yeah.
And then on the defensive end, there's obviously always some good players. So I really think the hot topic right now is that I've been seeing so many mock drafts with JJ McCarthy going top 4, and some of them even have him going top 2, which, I mean, here's the thing is that McCarthy, obviously this is a bit of a stretch, but McCarthy is a Michigan guy. Tom Brady was a Michigan guy. Tom Brady was drafted pretty late. If, McCarthy were to go later, like, could we see the same trajectory? I don't see him top 2. I mean, I was reading the analysis of Drake May and Jane Daniels pro days, and apparently May can just flat out throw the ball, and Daniels can do the same. So, with McCarthy at the combine, his throws were good, but not great. But then again, how much do you weigh the NFL combine? Really,
Yeah.
right? Like we mentioned this in a previous episode. You're going to Indianapolis, for a very short and limited session. Obviously he's not playing with the Michigan offensive scheme, not with his players that he's been playing with for
exactly.
right. It's like, how much does it really mean? I
At
think
the
with
combine.
the pro day, the pro day is actually means more than the NFL combine because you're, like with Caleb Williams, like he was here at USC playing.
He did his pro day here. He didn't go to the combine. He didn't throw at the combine. And so,
Right.
Yeah. And
Yeah. So, I think we've seen quarterbacks who have been drafted well after the first round, but with McCarthy now, he's being picked number 2. Like, what are your takes on that? Because there are a lot of other good quarterbacks, and I sometimes when I think of McCarthy going before some of these other quarterbacks, I just find it hard to believe.
The only way I could see McCarthy going before those other quarterbacks is I feel like the type of person he is in those types of interviews that GMs have with the players when they take them out to dinner, when they get to know the player, the person. I feel like that's the only way McCarthy could be above these other quarterbacks because McCarthy, compared to his other quarterback class, I think he was at around 23, 22 pass attempts per game. And the Michigan offense was good without McCarthy as well. Like just because of their offense, they had a really good offense. Like their running back, really good. But basically, I think that JJ McCarthy, in these personal types of interviews that he'll have with GMs, that's the only way I think he could be increasing his draft capital, because we haven't really seen the level of production at the same from him and the other quarterbacks in his class. I mean, Caleb Williams had like around 33 pass attempts per game, and him at 23, and then I think Jaden Daniels had 37, and so like that's just a big difference, especially in the past year that they played, which meant a lot for those other quarterbacks. And JJ McCarthy's had a lot of time to prove himself, especially in high school. I mean, for God's sakes, he was a freak of nature in high school. I mean, he had like, I think it was 32 touchdowns to like 0 interceptions, wow, and won his championship for his high school. That was amazing. But that's high school. We have seen college. He's been good. I just don't think he's been able to show enough to be able to draft number 2.
Well, I think with Caleb Williams, Drake May, Jane Daniels, etc.,
they're really good.
Well,
they're
first,
really good.
they obviously they're all very good.
Yeah.
All these guys are talented in their own way, which is, I think, in previous classes, like, I think when you talk about the quarterbacks, sometimes they're a little easier to compare. I feel like these guys are harder to compare because they're good in their own way. And I think with their respective college teams, they all play different roles, right? Caleb Williams was the forefront of USC. Jane Daniels was pretty much the forefront of LSU, although yeah, I think their receiving core was probably better. I mean, was much better than USC's receiving core last year.
Oh, yeah.
So you have to take that into account.
Yeah, exactly.
And then with McCarthy, he wasn't all of Michigan's team. Right?
That's
Caleb Williams.
The point.
Caleb Williams was USC.
He was.
Right? Like when people, it was crazy because I remember people were blaming Caleb Williams on USC's lack of success when it was just so obviously their defense.
It was horrible.
Right? And
every possession that defense would give up a touchdown.
Well, yeah, and I think it's crazy to be like, Caleb Williams had a down year last year. Like, what are you?
No, he did
not.
What
are you talking about? What are you talking about? So, I think that's kind of where you have to start your comparison. It's like, okay, with these college teams, what did the quarterback mean for them? And with Caleb Williams, he meant everything to USC.
Yep.
McCarthy, I just don't think that's the case. So I think you have to take that into account when you're analyzing this situation, because when you put McCarthy in front of someone like Jane Daniels, I just don't see how you can do that. But then again, you've seen quarterbacks that aren't, particular, like the stats in college aren't really all there, and then they get to the NFL and they're phenomenal.
Right.
So it's hard. I mean, it's flat out hard to just be like, you never know, because there's so many picks that teams take and gamble an entire season on, and it just fails. It just completely fails.
Right.
So this happens, but let's just put it out there. Out of these core quarterbacks, where does McCarthy rank for you?
Oh my gosh, man!
It's hard. It's like genuinely hard because like
I have Drake May, Jaden Daniels, Caleb Williams, all better than McCarthy already. So McCarthy's at 4 at that point.
Well, let me ask you this: so with Drake May, like, I think, and the other thing is that the translation from college football to the NFL is a lot more difficult than people think it is. I mean, the game is just much different, right? The game, I mean, because in the NFL, every player you go against, whether they're famous, a celebrity, and their name, right, there's a lot of guys that you don't know their name, and they're still studs.
Phenomenal.
They're studs.
Yeah.
Right? They sit under the radar, especially like defensively. I think a lot of
it's extremely competitive at the NFL, and I think a lot of times these players that you're talking about, something unfortunate happens to them along the way that they are not able to showcase their abilities to the fullest potential. Like injuries is the forefront of everyone's spotlight being taken away. So obviously we're in a league right now where there's just so much competition, so many good players. Does JJ McCarthy keep up with all of them? I don't know. I mean, possibly. I think so. Is he a number 2 pick? I don't think so. No, definitely not number 2. But in this quarterback class, I think he could be, honestly, one of those under the radar players that could be developed in the next few years. I mean, I've seen a lot of potential out of the film that I've seen of McCarthy. I mean, his crossbody throws, cross the field throws are insane. It's like no other. I mean, I saw him do like a 64-yard dart across the field when he was in Michigan. I mean, like that was a really good play that he did. That shows a lot of potential. But as of right now, I don't think he has the development enough work there that he's put into the game to be number 2 or just anything else. Unless if he's able to convince these coaches and GMs that he's a great guy over the other guys.
Well, let me bring this up. So let's take programs like you got Michigan and McCarthy, right? And then you had Drake May and UNC.
Mm-hmm.
And UNC, for what they were predicted to do, had a kind of disappointing year. I mean, they obviously weren't as good as Michigan, so I think you have to account for that. But, with the way that UNC season went and the way that Michigan season went, like, do you take that into account when you're putting McCarthy against May? Because I think
100%.
So if you are, then why should he not be number 3?
Because he was not the reason that they were number 3. Because Drake May still has that level of production when they weren't as good, and probably better level production than McCarthy that I've seen at his pro day, at his combine, and also through his games. So I just like it's the same thing with Caleb Williams. I think it's like someone saying like, oh, McCarthy did better than Williams at his school. Why can't he be a better pick than Williams? Like and so like just the numbers, the stats, numbers, everything. I just don't think McCarthy has enough yet to be that number 2 guy. I just don't.
I mean, well, the other thing is the conferences make a difference too, right?
Yeah.
Because the Big Ten is really not that great.
Right.
I mean, Michigan played Iowa. I mean, Iowa scored 0 points in the Big Ten. I mean, they have no offense. Their defense is great. I think they had the best defense in the country, or top 5 or something. And they did a pretty good job mitigating that Michigan offense. But, like 0 points. I mean, come on.
Not even a pick 6, like
nothing. I mean, they had no offense.
Yeah.
But I remember watching some of that game. So outside of Ohio State, Michigan, and Penn State, the Big Ten really doesn't have that. I mean, they have some good teams, but if you're talking about playoff contenders, those are really the 3. And then when you look at the ACC, you obviously had Florida State, who got snubbed, right? I mean, they went undefeated, but like Florida State, Clemson, and the ACC. And then in the Pac-12, you have like 6-7 teams, and it's like, whoa. I mean, these legit teams.
Yeah.
So I think that's another thing that you should look out for. So I think obviously when you look at the draft again, Chicago is super safe in taking Williams, right?
Yeah.
I think that's
a lock.
That's a lock.
That's
a lock. And then, I think it's going to be interesting to see what happens with the rest of the picks, really, because I think
it's all up in the air. I feel like
because between Daniels and May for number 2, I think it's a little bit of a toss-up.
Yeah.
So Washington's got that pick, and they took Sam Howell, right? He was a UNC guy,
right?
So I mean, is that are you going to count for that? I don't think so.
No, definitely.
I don't think so. They're 2 different players, but I do think in terms of pocket passing, although I think May is a little bit more of he can run too. He definitely can run. But I think with the NFL and the pocket passing style, that's super common now. Like, I think, with comparing Sam Howell and Drake May, like you could look at that. And then, obviously, one thing I want to bring up is, so the Broncos had the 12th overall pick. Since they just let Russ go, would they be looking to pick somebody up?
100%. A quarterback? Yeah. And if McCarthy's available, I think they'll take him.
I don't see why not.
Yeah.
I
think McCarthy to the Broncos is actually a good pick.
I would agree. I think, it's hard, and it's hard. It's like really hard to just confidently say McCarthy is going to go one way or the other because you see the potential, but he could easily just flame out.
Yeah.
And personally, I think we're going to see the latter just because I don't know how ready he is for the NFL. And, like I said, I mean, I think with the Big Ten, sometimes you don't play that great of teams. And with a defense like Michigan, that gives him a lot more opportunity because that defense is going to get him the ball a lot more and he's going to have more opportunity. And he still didn't have the same stats that these other quarterbacks did. So, and then someone that's getting slept on quite a bit is Michael Penix Jr. He ran a sub 4.6 40-yard dash at the UW Pro Day, which obviously the 40-yard dash, like that's a pretty
It's
good
a
number.
good measurement of skill too.
Yeah, it is, absolutely. So I think with Penix Jr., the reason why he's not getting a lot of hype is just because he simply doesn't have the same throwing arm ability
Right.
that these other quarterbacks have. Some of these quarterbacks like Williams, I mean, they can just dart the ball.
Williams,
they can just it's
launch
a laser beam.
It's
like a
insane.
laser beam.
Yeah.
It's not even the distance passes because we've seen Penix throw the deep passes, but with Williams, like he
It's
can
his
just
speed,
dart the ball. I mean, the ball just zips right in. I think Penix he just doesn't have the same throwing ability,
Yeah.
and he can develop into that. He can work on it.
Yeah.
And I think, if you're a team, maybe early second round, late first round, if you are looking for a quarterback potentially, and Penix Jr. is still available, I would consider taking him. But I think, I mean, what are your final takes on this NFL draft?
McCarthy going number 2 is just insane to me. I have NFL mock draft open right now on NFL.com, and they have McCarthy going number 2, and I'm just like, why? But final take, in this draft order right now, I think that the Broncos should take McCarthy. Honestly, I think
at
that
number 12.
I think they should. Yeah, at number 12, and I don't think McCarthy's deserving of a higher pick, especially not top 5. I don't think. I just think there are better options. Jaden Daniels, Drake May, Caleb Williams, so he's going to the Bears. But it's just like I don't think that McCarthy is the best option on the table. I think he could, down the line, prove us all wrong with development and a good coach like Sean Payton, but not right now. Not right out of college. He hasn't had the numbers for it. He hasn't had. I just don't think he's proven to us yet that he can do that. But
yeah, well, speaking of Sean Payton and the Broncos, they let go of Russell Wilson and he moved to the Pittsburgh Steelers. So, when you start thinking about teams that made the playoffs last year and will not only make a return to the playoffs, but will have a chance at the Super Bowl, that's my pick. It's the Pittsburgh Steelers.
The Steelers.
Yeah, just because, first of all, Mike Tomlin's their coach, and I like Mike Tomlin a lot, and he's done phenomenal things in Pittsburgh. And I think with someone like Russ, who obviously, he was in a bad place these last years. I just don't think Denver was the right fit. Obviously, when he moved, there was a lot of hype around it, but clearly it didn't work out. And I think that was partially because of Sean Payton, but I think Russ is in a much better place in Pittsburgh. And he's obviously in the last years of his career. We all know that.
Right.
So I think, if he wants to, make a shot at another Super Bowl, I think this is a pretty good place for him to do it. Not to mention, they also got Justin Fields, who I think will develop into a great starting quarterback.
Especially with Wilson there to help him.
I mean, the fact that the Bears got all of that for like $5 million, I mean, they stole those trades.
Yeah,
absolutely stole those trades. They've also got the 20th overall pick in the draft. Probably going to go with an offensive lineman, but I do think one concern is their receiving core. So George Pickens, obviously, very solid wide receiver 1. Van Jefferson has some NFL experience with the Rams, but he's not like a super one. And I mentioned this earlier. Like, there's lots of guys that are super talented, just never mentioned, right? And
I feel like Van Jefferson is one of those players. Like, I don't know if you ever heard of him, but Donovan Peoples-Jones, who was on the Browns, and he was a good. I feel like a solid wide receiver 2, but they had him at wide receiver 3. And they traded him away, but he was always really good. And
I remember him.
yeah, exactly.
Absolutely,
And
yeah.
so like Van Jefferson, I feel like is another one of those receivers who is pretty good, pretty solid. They can get production out of their quarterback connection, and I think he's good enough to be for a Russell Wilson receiver for sure. Justin Fields is also, but yeah, that's a good pick. I feel like the Steelers, but with the question of making the Super Bowl, I think to make a Super Bowl, you don't only need the team like to be obviously be talented to be good enough, but you need the team I feel like to be hungry enough to get that Super Bowl. Because obviously NFL players, they're all being paid the same amount. I feel like you need that whole locker room in that wavelength of I am hungry, I need a Super Bowl now. We are winning this championship going into the season. I feel like that's the only way teams will win Super Bowls. The mentality, the ability to be able to go in a locker room together and all be on that same wavelength of we are winning every single game and we are going to the Super Bowl because they want it so bad. And that's who I feel like is the Browns. But I'm not going to pick them.
Take the Browns.
I'm not going to pick them. I'm not going to pick them. I think they will make the Super Bowl. Honestly, I really think they will because every year I always hope that they make the Super Bowl. Last year was the closest I feel like they got. I mean, aside from 2020, but they had some really good offseason moves so far this year. I mean, they've re-signed Zadarius Smith. They've locked up their defense, their secondary. They have now Tyler Huntley. They have probably the most overpowered quarterback room in the league. Deshaun Watson, Tyler Huntley, Dorian Thompson-Robinson, who's honestly going to be on the practice squad because they got who else did they get in their quarterback room? Damn.
You're the Browns.
I know. Jameis Winston, Deshaun Watson.
They have Jameis Winston.
Yeah, they have Jameis Winston. Tyler Huntley. That was who it was. Tyler Huntley, Jameis Winston, Deshaun Watson. Those are the 3 quarterbacks that's the quarterback room right now. I mean, Dorian Thompson-Robinson, I feel like is just going to go in the practice squad. But they brought in 2 really good quarterbacks there. Locked up their secondary, their defense. And so they have all the key components that they need to make that Super Bowl run and the mentality factor. But
you got to pick somebody else.
Yeah, if I went with somebody else, I'd have to go with, it's surprising, but the Rams. I think the Rams are a really good team. They, I think, are making some offseason moves, not really too much into it. I think they have like 10 additions. But I think what we saw last year with their very small playoff run, they almost beat the Lions. And the Lions went to the NFC Championship, almost beat the Niners.
Should have beat the Niners.
Should have beat the Niners too. So the Rams being able to go in there and like be 2 points away from victory, I think it was a 1 point loss. I think that they could make a Super Bowl run. I think that, well, they've done it before, obviously. Sean McVay is just an amazing coach there. And they are also a team that could get in that locked mentality mindset. They have done it before, and they almost did it last year. So I'd say Rams, Browns as 2 teams that made the playoffs who I think will go to the Super Bowl. Maybe a Rams-Browns Super Bowl. But
I don't see it in the Rams, dude.
You don't see the Rams?
No, I think they can make the playoffs, but I don't see a Super Bowl run.
Well, I don't know. I think that they could. If they play their cards right throughout the next season. I definitely think they could. I mean, they did it with a slightly more talented roster. I mean, they had Von Miller and Aaron Donald on their defensive line for the year that they went.
Donald's gone now.
And won. Yeah, exactly. They're gone. But I think that those two players were the biggest difference of this team versus that team that won the Super Bowl. That defensive line, Aaron Donald.
Well, the Rams also just got hot that year, right? They just got hot.
Well, that's what I'm saying. The mentality, hot aspect of the locker room.
I think they're still cooling down from their last Super Bowl, personally.
Really?
Yeah, the 49ers are one in their division. I mean, the 49ers are in their division.
Yeah, so but they've proven that they can beat them.
Of course. I mean, the 49ers aren't they're not immortal.
Yeah,
I
and
mean-
especially and Brock Purdy. I don't think so many people talk about the Niners making the Super Bowl next year. I don't think Brock Purdy is there yet to be able to take the Niners to the Super Bowl. We've talked about this before.
Like, you don't think they're gonna go again?
I don't think
They
so.
made it 2 years in a row.
I know, but like, I just don't think so. I don't.
Why?
Wait,
You think-
2 years in a row?
49ers?
Yeah.
They made it last year. Did they not make it the year before?
No.
Who was in the Super Bowl the year before?
Bucks, Chiefs, or no, Rams, the Bengals. Rams, Bengals.
Are you sure?
Rams, Bengals. Wait, Rams, Bengals, Bucks, Chiefs, and then or Bucks, Chiefs, Rams, Bengals, and then what?
No, we have our Super Bowls.
Wait.
mixed up.
What
We
the
gotta
hell?
okay, but regardless of who, but the 49ers. No, because the first Super Bowl, the 49ers that I remember, they had Garoppolo. Yeah, so Purdy wasn't even there.
Oh, it was Chiefs, Eagles.
Oh. How did we forget that? Okay.
No, the last time. Okay, so the Niners went last year, but the last time they went was in 2020. That's what it was
Right, they played the Chiefs,
with
right?
the Garoppolo. Yeah, with
Okay,
Garoppolo.
okay.
It was
That's
their
what
it was their rematch.
I was losing my mind. Okay.
Exactly. Yeah. So I feel like that was the main thing that that limited them last year was Brock Purdy not being able to come up in those clutch situations, and especially in the Super Bowl. And I just think another team will be able to eliminate them from playoff contention.
What team?
It could be the Rams. I feel like, or the Lions. I think the Lions have a better decision.
You had to pick one team that's gonna just eliminate them,
Lions.
and you have to keep in mind
The Lions. I'm locking
But-
at.
Oh,
The
but as
Lions.
what seed? Because if are the 49ers going to be the 1 seed in the NFC? Because if they're the 1, then they get the bye.
No, I don't think they'll be the one.
So they'll be what? The 2, the 3?
I think they'll be the 2,
the 2.
and then
Who'll
the
be the one?
Lions could be the 1.
Okay.
I think that.
I like
think
it.
That's
I
cool.
love the Lions.
Yeah,
I love
exactly.
the Lions. So anyway,
I mean, I'm just trying to be a little different with picking the the Rams.
I don't know.
Maybe
I don't
the-
think it's an awful pick. But
Yeah, I'm just like
I don't.
under the radar, under the radar. It's sneaky good. They have Puka Nacua, Cooper Kupp. You don't know what they can do. I mean,
I think it's all about who gets hot at the right time.
it's
I mean,
true
because the Chiefs were struggling in the regular season and they got hot
at the right
and
time.
they seemed like undefeatable. So
Yeah.
I mean, you just never know. But to end off the episode, let's quickly pick a team that did not make the playoffs and that is going to make the playoffs this year and has a chance to make the Super Bowl.
Bears. Bears.
I love the confidence.
Bears. 100%.
I
With
think
Caleb
that's
Williams
crazy.
going number 1 to the Bears and their offense right now with Keenan Allen,
Mike,
Darryl Mooney. Is Darryl Mooney?
Darnell Mooney.
Or Darnell Mooney? Yeah, exactly.
He's still there.
Yeah, exactly. Their wide receiver core, so their offense is undeniably will put up
And they also
production.
have,
Will have a good
DJ
production.
DJ Moore.
DJ Moore. Exactly.
He's solid. He's solid.
So I think Caleb Williams has the pieces he needs for a good run.
That's
I think he does.
crazy.
I think he
that's-
does. I think he'll be good going into it. I think he'll be a good starter. I don't think he'll have any hiccups or too many big gaps.
You don't think there's going to
in
be any
between.
sort of a transition period?
I mean, I don't think it'll be too detrimental. I think it'll be something similar to CJ Stroud.
So you don't. Okay.
basically.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
I,
So,
I
like,
have confidence in Caleb Williams. I really think he'll do very good in the league. I think he'll be just as good as CJ Stroud, maybe better.
Okay. That's a good. I mean, I like that take, but I just don't. I don't. So you think they have a chance to make the Super Bowl?
I mean, they have a chance. You said playoff run and chance to make the Super Bowl. So I think they'll go on a playoff run.
Okay.
I'll bring them a chance. They'll have a chance.
Okay.
They'll have a chance if they get hot at the right time. They'll have a chance, but I think they'll definitely make the playoffs.
I think
No.
I think their defense is terrible. So I don't think they're going anywhere with the defense they have.
Yeah, but it's not. The offseason isn't over yet. They'll have time to be able to reconstruct what they have.
I mean, maybe. I mean, I think most of the free agency moves, the major ones, have already happened. So
Yeah.
I don't. You know.
Jadeveon Clowney is still in the market, though. Right?
No, he's not. No, he got picked up by the Panthers.
Oh my God, that's
Yeah.
why. Because I forgot it's the Panthers. Panthers suck.
That's my pick. No, I'm kidding. They're terrible. They're
The
terrible.
Panthers. Yeah. Who do you have?
I have a very safe pick, Cincinnati.
Oh my
Super
gosh.
boring. I'm
Super
boring.
boring.
I'm boring.
Come on.
I'm boring.
Oh my God.
I think the Bears. That's just ridiculous. You're crazy.
Why?
I think you're crazy. I love Caleb Williams because he's our boy at USC, but no playoffs, no way. No chance.
I think
Absolutely no
playoffs.
chance with that defense. Unless Williams can put up the 45 average he did here. You never know.
You never know.
You never
Yeah, I
know.
think Caleb Williams will be a game changer in the league, but
No, I think he'll be a game changer, but I doubt year one. Year one?
wasn't the Texas defense also? Oh no, they were pretty good. This past
they were
year.
good.
Yeah, they were good.
They had
were good.
defensive rookie of the year, right? Or no, did they have defensive player of the year? No.
No.
Rookie, defensive rookie.
Yeah,
of the year.
defensive player.
What was his name? Will Anderson?
Yeah, I think
Yeah,
so.
Will Anderson.
Yeah.
Solid, and I don't know.
Yeah.
So Cincinnati.
Cincinnati.
I'm exciting. I'm super bold.
Well, I'm sure you're going to be right, but I'm sure I'm going to be right too.
No
With
chance.
the Bears,
No
100%.
No chance.
But everyone, thank you guys so much for tuning in to episode 5 of Fourth and Goal. I'm Joey,
I'm Robert.
and thank you guys again. Have a great day.
Thank you.